So Liberty Poker Club, one of the things we play with here, of course, is poker. So when I talk about poker, I'm going to narrow it down quite a bit. And there's a fly on my head. I'm going to narrow it down because, yes, there's lots and lots of forms of poker, but I'm going to stick right now to the most readily available version of poker, which right now is Texas Hold'em. You can watch it on television. There are plenty of apps by which you can learn Texas Hold'em. My group of people have been playing with Zynga Poker, it's very popular. I'm not advocating for it because it's missing some features that I liked in previous poker apps that were available. But to me, that matters less than I would really like you to take some time to learn to play Texas Hold'em. Why do I want you to do that? Well, it goes back to this concept of life being a game and how we interact with the world around us. So I'm going to use for right now the concept of a basic purchase that you make at the store. So you're going to go to your local grocery store and you're going to make a purchase. In the process of going to the grocery store and making a purchase, it has all of the elements of how most business is done, and eventually I convince you most of life is done, interactions in relationship and all sorts of things. But it has this basic concept of that is demonstrated well in poker. So if you're going to go to the store and you're going to make a purchase, there's information that you know, there's information that they know, and there's information everybody knows. And let's talk about the ones everybody knows to start with. So the stuff that everybody has available to them are some of the basic parameters under which purchases happen. So for instance, you have money. If you have money, you know that $1 right now is worth a certain amount. You don't have to do something like look up the value of $1 versus the yen or something today. You don't need that. You have that general sense. And usually that general sense of how much $1 is worth comes from how hard you work to get it. Okay? So we all have that basic sense of in society $1 is worth a certain amount. You understand that there are some basic rules, or at least you should understand that there are basic rules. That information is available to anybody. So for instance, when you go to the grocery store and go to make a purchase, there are a series of rules that are involved there. Some of them are standard practices and some of them are absolute laws. So let's talk about an absolute law. An absolute law is that if it says that a price on the shelf at your grocery store, in most states in the United States, I don't know if it's a federal law, but I know most states it's a law, Washington State, where I am included. If you go up to the cash register, they cannot legally ring it up for any more than what was on that tag. Okay? That is a requirement. There are other rules that deal with pricing. So for instance, in a time of crisis, you hear about things like price gouging, which says in a time of crisis, you can't artificially inflate the prices. That's an actual law that says that's illegal for them to do, okay? There are other laws that have to do with them, things like when you should understand the difference in shopping at a standard grocery store versus shopping in one of the shopper club style. We have Costco. I don't know how universal that is to the whole country, but if we use Sam's Club or Costco, those sorts of things, their rules are different than the rules at your other grocery store. And that's because by joining their club, they can assign to you certain rules. So for instance, one of the things that you see very regularly there, and this is just, I don't know exactly how this plays in, but it's a good example of how this changes, is at your grocery store, you go into your grocery store, from the time that you purchase your stuff, as you head to the door to leave, if somebody walks up and says, "Can I look at what's in your bag?" the answer, you can say no. They do not have a right to look in your bag because they're in the general world, and in the general world, we have a constitutional right, okay, against search and seizure. So they have to actually suspect you of something to have the right to even look in your bag. If you, in my experience shopping in a place like Costco or Sam's Club, they virtually always ask you to look at their stuff on the way out. It's part of the security of how they do that because you're doing large item stuff. In that case, they can ask you. Why? Well, because if you read the contract you signed with them when you became a member of their club, that is, they're smart enough to have put that in there because that's part of their sales system of doing it. It's interesting. Another store that's out there that I think most of us have been in is Best Buy. Best Buy used to very often ask you on the way out to look in your bag. And I've noticed shopping at Best Buy's over the last 5 years or so, it's become very rare for them to ask you to look in your bag. It's because I happen to know they got called on it a bunch of times by people. I'm the kind of jerk who walks into a place hoping they're going to ask me just so I can educate them on the fact that I get to say, no, you can't look in my bag. Why? Well, because very often I would understand the rules of the game we're playing better than the poor guy they set at the door and told him to look in everybody's bag. No, you don't get to do that. Understand the basic game that you're playing. Okay? That's a set of rules. So, when I go to the grocery store, there are the laws involved of how things, of making a purchase in that environment. Okay? Then there's information that I know. So let's talk about a little information I know that they don't know. I know how much money I have. They don't know that. When I walk in the grocery store, mind you, we're giving away our info like crazy. And so, when you're shopping at Amazon, they very well might know how much money you have. But when you're doing traditional shopping, it's unlikely that they have any real idea how much money I have. They don't know how hungry I am or how badly I want that item. They don't know the item that I'm about to buy, is it life or death to me? Or does that item, I really don't care. They don't have that information, but some part of me knows that. Some part of me knows how big a deal is it going to be, whether I don't buy this item at all, whether I can't buy this item here. Those are two different things. Okay? How willing am I to shop for this in multiple places? This is all information that I have because I know me. Okay? They don't really have that information. So what information do they have that I don't have? Well, they know, for instance, how much they paid for the item. They know what that item that I want to purchase, they know how much money they've invested in that item, and I don't necessarily know that. I don't necessarily know what their overhead is. I don't know what their cost of operation is. So if we were in a situation where we're talking about what's the minimum price of something, they have information in figuring out what the minimum price of an item is that I don't have. I can make assumptions about it, and I know business pretty well. There's lots I can figure out about it, but it's unlikely in most situations can I give you a very really accurate, knowledgeable number of what they're invested into it. Okay? They might know things like, is this the last one of these in their store? Is this the last one of these in their entire system? Is this the last one of these on Earth? They might know those things, and I'm unlikely to know it. I don't have access to their back room. Stores have lots of areas that are employee-only type areas. The number one thing those protect are information. They know things we don't know. We don't know. So when I'm running a business, for instance, if I have a pile of things I desperately want to get rid of, one of the ways I can do that is I can set them all out there and put a big sale sign on it. And then I'm trying to get rid of them all. Another way I can do it is put one out there and say, going fast, last one available. Give you the sense of, I better grab that right now. Many of you, I suspect, experienced this in just the last 6 months to a year. How much toilet paper did your grocery store have? Did you really know how much toilet paper they have? Because a lot of stores were not rolling out every roll of toilet paper they had into the aisles, especially after people started impulse or panic buying it all, because they know if they rolled 5 pallet loads out there, it all disappeared instantaneously. But most stores realized if they put it out there in small bunches, people looked around at each other and went, okay, there's 100 of us in the toilet paper aisle. I'm not going to take every single one because these people all obviously need it too, and they're probably going to jump me. So if I put out there 50 of them, nobody takes more than a couple, and it goes away. And the store knows if they wait 10 minutes, you're all gone. They can stick the next 50 out there and make a whole nother group of people happy and meet the needs of a whole nother group of people. And most stores were not just dumping it all out there and having a free-for-all. Okay? Again, the basic idea of what do they know versus what do I know. Okay, so how does this compare to poker? So in poker, in the way Texas Hold'em's laid out, and I'm not going to teach you Texas Hold'em here. You need to go out and find that. And at this point, I'm actually going to talk as though you've done that. So if you need to pause right now and go learn some basics of Texas Hold'em, that's great. Please go do that. But the basics of it I'm not going to go too far. You don't need to do that this second. But the basics are going to be, in Texas Hold'em, there's going to be 2 cards that are mine. Every player at the table is going to have 2 cards. I know my 2 cards. I don't know anybody else's 2 cards. Now, as we talk poker going forward, you're going to find out I know a lot more about what all those other cards are than most people do. But that's because one of the things you're going to learn is that pile of information known by everybody there's a lot more information there than most people think. They leave most of it out there. Okay, you're leaving to the other guy the availability of most knowledge that you're able to have. Okay, but the basics are I have cards, they have cards, and then it's going to lay out. It's going to start with 3, then 4, then 5. So there'll be 5 cards out in front of you that everybody knows, and what is going to happen in the interchange is going to be based upon that set of things, along with a series of rules. Rules and norms. Okay? So the information known to everybody are those 5 cards out there. There are the basics of the game. So also known to everybody is that we're playing with a deck with 52 cards. There are only 52 cards. We know what they all are. There's no extra Go Fish cards in there or anything. You're playing with that basic set. Okay? It's also why most top-level poker players hate the whole Joker wild card thing, because what that does is it screws up. It actually gives away the ability of the better player to know what's out there, because all of a sudden you have cards that aren't anything. They're everything. Those of us who consider ourselves good players don't like that. We like being able to know what's out there. And so you have that basics. You have the rules. I know there's going to be 3 cards. Then there's going to be a round of betting, and then there's going to be a 4th card, and there's going to be, these are all part of it. I also know that there are things like, if you're not in the hand, you can't talk about the hand that's being played. Okay, that's an actual rule. That doing that in a tournament, doing that in a casino will get you thrown out of the table or suspended from the table, from your hands, these sorts of things, because those are rules. There are norms, what you can get away with. And one of the other concepts that we're going to talk about going forward here is not playing by rules that don't exist. Okay? This is one of the powerful ones to me, is that there are 2 ways top poker players play. The very top poker players play by all means at the same time. But there are 2 general areas they play. They play the odds that are going on. So there are numerical odds involved with the cards. That's information available to everybody. That information, good players get good at the numbers involved. There is math involved and they get good at it. Some are mind-bogglingly good at specifying the numbers down to single percentage points. Okay, I don't play like that, but I have these general ideas of how strong something is, and it's numerical. Okay, the other way we play is by playing the person, and you play the person both with the information they're giving away. Some things like tells. There are people who do things when they have certain cards, those sorts of things. the top people who play other people would say everyone gives away information. That's part of the game, is trying to hold to yourself your information. You have things that you know, but you're unconsciously giving it away if you're not careful. Okay? But one of the things that is powerful in this is that this concept of don't play by rules that don't exist. So when I sit down at the table, if you ask people who know me, if it were to be asked, am I a talkative person? Yes, everyone would say I am a talkative person. Okay? If you meet me at the poker table, that may not be the case. Because I'm a talkative person in the real world doesn't mean when playing the game I have to be talkative. And so I might decide before I sit down at a table at a tournament that I'm not speaking to anyone at all. There are no rules that say I have to talk to you at the table. Okay? Whether or not I'm a nice guy, I would say the opinion would be very mixed on whether or not I'm a nice guy. It probably depends on how you cross me and how you define nice. If nice means I'm not passionate and I'm not loud, or some people would say I'm not nice. I think the people who really know me would say there aren't many nicer people in the world. That's what I think of myself. I will give of myself almost anything and everything. Okay? I will go to the ends of the world for somebody. But when I sit down at the poker table, I'm not any of those people. I'm who I decide to be. Because there is no rule I have to be me when I sit down at the poker table. So I don't play by rules that don't exist. So when I sit down at the table, I can choose to be anybody I want to be. This is the basics of how life is. That whole idea of the first impression. You know, when you only get one chance to make a great first impression. I think that's crap. And I think very often first impressions are a lie. Why? Because we teach people to make good first impressions. So we dress a certain way. Before I made this video, I put pants on instead of my shorts so that you're not looking up my pants legs, and I put actual shoes on instead of the water sock things. Why? Because I'm making an impression. I want to look a certain way when I'm on this video, and if I'm going to sit here and look at you like this, I'm going to make an impression that is based upon what I want perceived right now, rather than trusting you would walk into my library and find me sitting here in my shorts and my t-shirt, which might have paint stains on it or whatever, and my sweaty head, and sitting here with something alcohol-based to drink while I'm reading a book, and decide I'm the guy you want to learn stuff from. No, I'm adjusting that impression. So we do it all the time. Poker gives us that opportunity in a very set way. We do it in lots of ways. We do it in how big we bet. Okay? A bet is the same thing. What's the impression I'm trying to make? I'm trying to make the impression I'm strong. I'm trying to make the impression I'm weak. I'm trying to make the impression that I'm weak and I'm acting strong. See, it gets layered like that. Because a person who's bluffing can bluff strong with a big pile, but a person who's bluffing can bluff soft too. Because I might put a small bet out there because you think if I'm trying to do what's called value betting, which is get every last penny out of you, which when I'm doing when I've got a really strong hand and I totally think I have you crushed, and I think you're not that strong, and I don't think you're nearly as strong as me, then I'm going to put out the biggest bet I think you'll actually pay off on. Okay, well, what if I have nothing, but I want you to pay off? Oh, I might try to make it look like the same thing. I might make it, so rather than putting a great big bet out there, I'm going to put out that bet that looks like I'm very carefully sizing that bet, because that's going to scare you more if you're paying attention. On the other hand, if I'm really weak, I might actually slide out a great big pile, especially if I'm the tall stack. If I've got more chips than you do by a lot, I might have a really weak hand, but I'm going to make it so expensive for you to even get a chance to look at it, that on the off chance that I'm not bluffing, you're not willing to take the risk. And so it's this idea of perception. We manage perception. So as we go forward, we're going to look at poker, but we're going to look at it as a tool. We're going to look at it as a tool of how do I see the world? And I want you to understand, we're going to look at it first at what I would say right now is a fairly basic level, but then we're going to look at it as a layer level of how does one thing I do affect the next thing I do, affect the next thing I do, because life works very much the same way. It's layered. What I do today and the perception I give today, when I succeed, when I fail, when all of those things affect all of the things down the road, and they change how you play the game. Why do I care about that? Because I said, I would like you to be a person who is helping enhance individual liberty in the world. And the abilities to go out there and change the world play by the exact same overall concepts that poker is. How do I get people to do what I want them to do? How do I motivate people to change? How do I get the world to pass the rules I want or the laws I want or to get rid of them, those sorts of things? We're playing a game at a pretty high level, and poker is a chance for you to practice those skills.